Hey, what's up, guys? So we're back with another Sunday school video. As you can see, I've got my lovely wife, Emily, in the background here. She's working on some Montessori stuff, cutting papers and prepping materials. Often this ends up being very messy in our house, and sometimes she cleans it up immediately, and sometimes she doesn't. So we'll see how this one goes. But she always does a good job, so I'm always proud of her for what she does. So today we're back in the Gospel of Matthew, and we're continuing in chapter 27. I almost said 17. 17 is my favorite number, so that's probably why. But we're in chapter 27, and if you want to look it up for yourselves, so you can read along, you can look up in the NIV, Matthew chapter 27, verses 11 to, I think it's 26. Yeah, verses 11 to 26 is what we're going to be going through today. Now, we are nearing the end of the Gospel of Matthew, and so right up here, in most stories, you've got the introduction and the rising action and all of that, and then you have the climax. Well, in the Gospel of Matthew, everything leading up to where we're at now is the rising action. Like, the end, it's almost the end of the book. Almost the end of the Gospel is the climax of the story. And so that's where we're getting at soon. Not quite today, but we'll get there. We'll probably finish before the end of the year. But it's been an interesting ride so far, and we're really getting close to the climax of the story. So if you guys recall, in some of the previous videos that we've done, some of the previous Sunday schools, we talked about Jesus going to the garden. He was praying. His disciples fell asleep. Judas betrayed him with a kiss, and he got arrested. And he told the disciples, hey guys, don't fight for me. I don't want any physical violence going on here. And so he sent them away, and they kind of ran away, and they were terrified because they thought it was going to be a fight, and Jesus is like, no fight, no fight. So then Jesus goes before the religious leaders, the Jewish people, and claims to be the Son of God, which they absolutely hate, and so they want to crucify him, they want to get him dead. Then we find that Peter disowns Jesus, just as he had predicted that he would do, and he says, I have nothing to do with this man. And then just last week we talked about Judas hanging himself. So he betrays Jesus, then he feels guilty because he admits Jesus was innocent and he was not deserving of the betrayal or any of that. And he goes and he kills himself. And all of this was in aligning with prophecies. So it was all in fulfillment of prophecies. And so today we get into just a little bit more of how Jesus ends up on the cross. And this time it's going to be before a Roman official. So we talked about the Jews, but seeing as how they're under Roman rule, they don't have any authority to kill Jesus themselves. They're not allowed to do that. So they have to bring him to Pilate, who is the Roman official. And he's kind of like the governor of the area, the governor of Israel and stuff. So he's tasked with keeping the peace and making sure everything is running smoothly and that the Roman Empire gets their taxes. That's really his job. And so they bring Jesus to him, and we'll see what happens. So starting in verse 11, it says, meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you? But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now, it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ? For he knew that it was out of envy, or self-serving needs, that they had handed Jesus over to him. Now, while Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message. Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. What shall I do then with Jesus who is called Christ? Pilate asked. They all answered, crucify him. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, He took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. It is your responsibility. All the people answered, let his blood be on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. And so in this passage, this is basically Jesus on trial with the Roman official before Pilate. And what's interesting, you guys may think about some modern day, law and order kind of stuff where you go before the judge and you have all this stuff going on, all the legal proceedings. What's interesting is in the Roman Empire, there was no such thing as the Fifth Amendment. So in our judicial system, you can plead the Fifth. You can say, hey, I don't want to comment on that. I don't want to say anything. And that's okay. You're legally allowed to do that. However, in their time, in this trial, there is no pleading the Fifth. If you stay quiet, if you are silent, that's an admission of guilt. Like if you don't answer a charge that's brought against you, that's basically you saying, yeah, I'm guilty of that. I did that, yeah. So when Pilate asks, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answers. He said, yes, it is as you say, I am the king of the Jews. I am Jesus, the Son of God. Like all of that gets played into that answer. But then when the chief priests and the elders start attacking him and accusing him and making all of these probably false accusations against him, not probably, definitely false accusations against him, he says nothing. And in the Roman system, that's an admission of guilt. And Jesus knew that. Because Jesus wasn't here for self-serving needs. He wasn't trying to get off the trial. He wasn't trying to get out, not guilty and not be executed. Jesus knows what's coming. He knows what needs to be done. And he has to be crucified in order to pay the penalty for our sins. And so he doesn't answer because he wants to end up on the cross. I shouldn't say once, but then I should also say once, because we saw in the garden that Jesus did not want to have to go through the cross. He did not want to have to bear that pain and that suffering. But at the same time, he did want to do it because he loves us and he wanted to do it for us. So that's why he stays silent, because he does not want to get out of this trial. He does not want to be found innocent and set free. That's not his goal here. And so that's him kind of showing this sense of selflessness. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about what he needed. It wasn't about what was going to be nice or good for him, but it was about what he was about to do for others, for everyone, for the whole world. And what's interesting is Pilate knows that the Jews brought Jesus to him because they were envious of him, because they didn't like what he had to say. They didn't like how he usurped their power. He didn't like how Jesus came in and kind of turned the tables on them and made the people not really like them so much because they really weren't that religious. They weren't that spiritual, and Jesus pointed it out. So he knew that there were self-serving reasons for why the Jews had brought Jesus to him. And so he tries to kind of play the system. I guess he had this custom where he releases a prisoner to them every time this festival year. So once a year he releases a prisoner. And he decides, I'll take this Barabbas guy who has a reputation of being a terrible murderer. And not terrible as in he's not good at it, meaning he's really good at it and he killed a lot of people. So Barabbas is this murderer and he's like, all right, we've got Jesus, an awesome teacher who just kind of made them upset a little bit, versus a murderer. They'll pick Jesus. They'll let Jesus go. They didn't let Jesus go. The chief priests and the elders convinced the crowd to ask for Barabbas, to put Jesus on the cross and to crucify him. And it becomes so uproarious. It becomes such a, Emily, what's a good word for that? The crowd gets so riled up that it's about to be a riot. They're getting ready to riot. And as I mentioned before, Pilate's job is to keep the peace. And if there's a riot, it looks bad on him. The Roman Empire, the emperor, will see that and be like, all right, Pilate did a bad job, so we'll kill him and put somebody else there who can do the job better. And so he doesn't want that. He wants to keep his life. So he decides to do what's easy for him. He does the self-serving thing. And he says, all right, crowd, I will give you Barabbas, and I guess we'll have Jesus killed. But he also washes his hands of the situation. There's a symbolic moment where he washes his hands in front of the crowd and he says, I am innocent of this man's blood. You're the ones who want him dead. You're the ones who want him crucified. So it's not on me, it's on you. And what's interesting is the crowd agrees to it. They're like, yeah, fine. His blood's on us, whatever, on us and our children. We want him dead, so kill him. And both sides are just doing this out of self-serving needs. And so that's what happens. He releases Barabbas to the crowd, and he has Jesus flogged, which is like a really painful way of being beaten, and like the flesh gets ripped off your back, and it's just nasty. And he hands him over to be crucified. And that's our passage for today. The thing I want to highlight, which hopefully you guys have grasped so far, is that a lot of times people will do things that suit them. Our natural inclination, our natural leaning as human beings is to do what's going to benefit us. Self-serving. We're going to do what is good for us. Don't care about what other people want. Don't care what's good for other people. Don't care if it hurts other people all the time. We want what is going to be beneficial to us. And that's usually the easier thing to do anyway. So we just take the easy path. We take what's good for us, easy for us, all of that. And what Jesus demonstrates is that that's not always the way that we're supposed to do things. In fact, a lot of times we're not supposed to do that way at all. We're not supposed to be self-serving. The whole New Testament is filled with different passages where it's either Jesus or Paul or Peter or John or somebody telling us, hey guys, stop thinking about yourselves and start thinking about other people. When Jesus went to the cross, he could have spoken up against those accusations, and he could have said, hey guys, I'm innocent of all of this. I don't deserve to die. You can't kill me. Legally, you can't kill me. He could have spoken up and done that. But because he didn't, he went to the cross, and that ended up bringing salvation to the entire world. If Jesus had been self-serving, we would not have salvation. But because he was selfless, we have salvation. We have the forgiveness of sins. And so he set the example for the rest of us as Christians, as little Christs. We also are to have a selfless nature. As we're going through life, it's going to be really easy and natural for us to do the things or choose the things that are good for us that might not be good for other people. But if we follow Jesus' example, we instead need to change our mindset and flip it around so that we choose the things and we do the things that are good for other people, that help other people, that serve other people, even if it's hard for us. And that's the message from this passage today. So say bye to Emily. Emily, say bye to everybody. If you guys have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll try to answer some of them. But otherwise, have a great Sunday. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Make sure that you list out all the things that you're thankful for, and start looking for ways that you can serve other people this week. See ya.